The next speaker in this round is Peter. He's working at AXPO and he's a senior expert, but he's also working as the head of Hydro-Suisse, which is a major expert commission for the hydropower in Switzerland, and you will see that we can learn a lot of how it's done in Switzerland. Please, the floor is all you, Peter, about the new storage increase project, which were negotiated with the local communities. Please.
Okay. Thank you. So, thank you for being here. I will talk about the roundtable, explain how that worked. A roundtable that was not always round, it was very spiky at various points in time during negotiations. I was in this roundtable in the back office, which was a working group that sort of generated proposals for the management of the roundtable to then make decisions. I will show you the process, how it worked, where it didn't work, and what we achieved at the end of the day. Okay, here we go. Just a few words about AXPO. We are a Swiss utility, internationally working. Are the largest hydro operator in Switzerland, operate 89 plants in Switzerland, 5 gigawatts of turbine installed capacity, and 1.5 gigawatts of pump storage. Production is about 10 terawatt hours per year. The Swiss production at the moment is mainly hydro. Over 60% is hydro. About 30% is nuclear. Nuclear will be shut down by the late 30s and early 40s without replacement. So what we see at the moment in Switzerland is today a rather comfortable situation. Production meets consumption pretty much. It's balanced. It's not balanced in the wintertime. We do some import in the wintertime, export in the summertime, but overall we feel pretty comfortable. The outlook is rather harsh. We expect consumption growth 50%, meaning close to 90 terawatt hours consumption by 2050. We lose nuclear, lose some hydro due to ecological measures, and at the end of the day, we see a gap of 50 terawatt per year to be filled. Not very comfortable, huh? There's a gap there. That's also now finally picked up by the politicians, the government. We have a solar and wind push. We want to grow solar and wind by 30 terawatt hours by 2030, which is very challenging. Energy-wise, that's a good step forward, but what we will have is a huge winter gap. We do have some flexibility in Switzerland with a lot of pump storage. We feel rather comfortable at the moment there, but the winter supply is not at all covered there. And there we need something to do. So the former Minister for Energy, Simonetta Sommaruga, made an initiative and formed a roundtable. You see the goal of this roundtable, a very general, very sort of soft formulated goal to generate a common understanding for the challenges of expanding hydropower, reach zero emission targets, ensure security of supply, preserving biodiversity. Well, it's rather simple, just squaring the circle and it's done. That goal was rather challenging and very soft, not very well defined. The participants invited NGOs, environmental NGOs, hydropower operators, industry associates, cantonal authorities, which are in charge of the concessions today, then the Federal Office of Energy and the Federal Office of Environment, both under Simonetta Sommaruga, that are two separate offices, which are not always completely aligned regarding their targets. That made the situation quite challenging there. So they initiated a workforce, assigned a working group of 15 experts, I was one of them there, to sort of get the ideas together and make a proposal towards this roundtable. The process, the roundtable met 3 times, started mid-2020, had a kickoff, exchanged positions, and sort of formulated the overall target, the goal, and assigned us to do the work. So we dug in, had 4 meetings, a lot of subgroup meetings, big discussions. I will come to that. The outcome was not very promising, I would say. Huh? So the roundtable met the second time, decided, we may have to do some corrections there, and we may have to focus a bit more and drive this working group towards a target. I'll come to that, what happened then. They basically sharpened the goals on one hand, and they assigned as a moderator a very nice and very tough man. And finally, we went to the second round, had only 6 months, had endless meetings, all open ends, some lasted 10 to 12 hours with 1 or 2 breaks. So we were really driven by this moderator to get to a solution, and finally found an agreement by the end of 2021. In detail, what happens? Part 1, 12 months. We had a lot of meetings, discussed, and basically the main achievement was that we reaffirmed that we did disagree. Now, the NGO said, well, the target is not really a target for us. Our target is to preserve nature, to prevent loss of biodiversity. The cantonal authority says, we don't like the process. We don't like the federal government to get into our stake. That's our business, keep out. And we said, well, if the position of our partners around the table, we may not find a solution. Okay, what did we find anyway? We found 49 projects. We pre-assessed them and categorized them. 17 of these projects showed to have rather low conflict. There we were positive to find some agreement with the with the NGOs. 18 had higher conflicts, and 14 had extremely high conflicts or technical hurdles not to be challenged. So we ended up having 35 in this case. It ended up to be 34 projects. We decided to proceed and to make a deep dive. On ecological compensation measures, we didn't find any agreement at all. So we agreed to disagree. Okay. With that, we went back to the round table. The ladies and gentlemen had a discussion there and decided, well, we may have to sharpen the goal. That's what they did. They said, okay, concretely, identify hydro projects to find 2 terawatt-hours of winter production per year. A list of projects that deal 2 terawatts with the least impact to biodiversity and landscape, and to be realizable until 2040. Identify ecological compensation measures, project-specific in general, and please draft a common recommendation we, the round table, can sign when we meet the next time. So, and then they send us this nice gentleman, Professor Dr. Ambühl. He's at ETH, or was at ETH, a former professor, head of negotiation and conflict management. Especially conflict management was not unimportant in this special case. He was also former state secretary for foreign affairs in Switzerland. Was over some period the lead negotiator for the relationship for the European Union, which is still not quite resolved, to be honest, but another story. He's a very nice man, very calm man, but he's very tough. Okay, so he made a kickoff, got us all together, and he started out with confirmation of the assignment and commitment to the target. That was the first tough issue, because some parties didn't really agree to the 2 terawatt target. Well, basically he told them, either you agree here or you go back to your masters and lords at the round table and discuss this issue with it. That's not a discussion of the working group. Secondly, we agreed on some games. And now, very important, thirdly, we had this list of 34 projects. He refused to discuss any of the projects before agreeing on a method to rate, to judge, and to value them. And that's what we did. And only after we had a fixed set of agreed methods how to work with this project, we then took the list, ran this calculator over these projects, got a result, and got some surprises there. So, quantification of ecological impact. Basically, we started out looking, have the projects any legal essential protection regulations that prevent them from being executed? If yes, exclusion, don't follow any further. If no, if possible in principle, we valued them in 4 dimensions. You can see that impact of valuable habitats, priorities of species, impact on landscape, and habitat function of water bodies. Rated 1 to 5, normalized, and then weighted with a weight factor 14, 30, and 2 times 15%. And I gave a figure, a number, between 1 and 5 for each of the projects we have on our list. Secondly, now came the engineers. And we tried to evaluate, to create an energetic potential. Did a lot of very complex models with storage production, runoff river production, winter production, economical feasibility whatsoever, different models. And yesterday we dumped them all. We said, doesn't work, very simple. What we are looking for? We are looking for winter storage energy. That's the only figure we care. And all the rest we just dump. Look at that later on. That's what we did. So we took the list of projects on the left side, 34 projects. Red column, ecological impact. We calculated the figure, the number, plugged that in. We took the winter storage energy, that's green, I said, no blue, difficult here. It's a blue. Added the figure, gigawatt hours, and then divided the ecological impact, divided by the winter production, and I gave a figure. And we were looking for the minimum. Ranked them according to this ranking, from low to high, added the winter production we needed, and at 2 terawatt hours we made a cut. And that was the 15 projects. That's how they were born. And then the screaming started. If you look at the first one, the corner, very nice project, 650 gigawatt hours of winter storage, a third of the target. But the ecological impact is the highest on the whole list here. And then we had screams and yells, that doesn't work, you have to dump that, we want other projects. And we said, okay, if we dump that project, we need to add 8 or 10 projects at the list behind, and the ecological impact is much higher then. So big discussion, people were close to walking away from the table. At the end of the day, we had agreed that method was the method we selected, and that was the one we proposed at the round table. End of the story. After a lot of high blood pressure, a lot of red faces, and disappointed people. But it worked. Okay. So some of the projects here, on the upper left corner, that's the one I just showed you. It's a new reservoir that's on an upper stage of project to keep the water back from Zermatt and then to transport into an existing plant. Upper stage, new upper stage drift in Bern. On the lower hand, you see 2 elevation dams, pure storage increased projects. One is in valleys, elevation of an earth dam. On the right side is one in Fusio. That's not in valleys, that's written here, that's in Ticino, in the southern part of Switzerland. Those are typical projects. Okay. We went back with this proposal around table. They had a rather short discussion, went rather smoothly there. They accepted the proposal here, recommend now to develop these 15 projects. It's not a decision, it's a recommendation, because the authority still remains with the canton and the local communities. It's not a federal authority or federal decision to make development of these projects. Next step now. We heard it, these storage projects are, like all storage projects, not economically viable, so the government needs to set up a funding scheme there. We have something in place that may need minor adjustments, but there is something in place there. We as project owners now, we work hard to develop the projects. Some of them are in a very early stage. They need serious engineering work to then make viable. Authorities are asked to facilitate and support permitting process, and the NGOs are asked to participate in early stage already in the development of the projects to then be able to agree and not oppose the projects when the permits are applied for. Realization really remains a great challenge regarding permitting, but especially regarding the economy of the whole situation here. Key success factors. The main one is certainly, it was a top floor project. The minister herself initiated the project, she led the meeting, and she made here and there throughout the process calls to individuals to get them in line and sort of keep them in the process, to not lose them. Also the stakeholders at the round table, they were all CEOs. with decision authority. So it was not second rate, it was the top floor that was present at that table. It was the unconditional commitments to the goal, and it was before that. It was really the common agreement of the urgent need to act, and that was present with all the participants. And that was probably the key factor. And then the definition of a clear and explicit target, that took us a while to find that out. Once we had this target, it was much easier to argue, to fight, and to move forward. Confidentiality was certainly an issue. The moderator, he was a key success factor. He was really the guy that kept the flock together, that kept us in line, like a sheepdog in New Zealand. Looked that we didn't lose participants on the way. It was very important there. Sufficient time to discuss on one hand, and also time pressure at the end of the day to decide. So it was this mixture of on one hand, be able to make loops, to discuss, but then come to the point. Escalation path for non-resolved issues, and finally it was a trust. The roundtable is a relatively small contribution to the Swiss energy production. We hope to yield 2 terawatt-hours of winter production. We need 10. There's still a little gap also on the winter production there. Huh? But it is a first good step, and we hope to move forward also with other projects and with other technologies. But for us, it's really a template of how to work solutions with divergent stakeholders in difficult situations, in urgent situations. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Peter. So if I understand rightly, you will have 4 more roundtables to achieve the 10, with 2 on the table now.